already onboarded onto the digital platform. This is from a NSS, National Sample Survey of the Ministry of Statistics. As official as it gets, numbers in India, approximately 85.5% of households possess at least one smartphone. Around 86.3% households in India have access to internet within the household premises. And then there's more data in terms of growth of digitization. While China dominates in value, in terms of number of transactions, India processes the largest number of real-time digital transactions globally, accounting for 50% of the world's total, significantly higher than the combined volumes of US, China, and EU. So we have onboarded a lot. Otherwise, you can't be processing the maximum number of transactions in the world, accounting for 50% of transactions onboarded. So a lot has been done. We are now talking about onboarding the next 300 million. But what is the first? Is it the first 300, 200, 100? I think that question will go to Lalitha. As the CEO of BHIM, I guess best placed, how many have we onboarded in terms of digital payments?
I think it's over 400 million, about 400 to 450 million users have been onboarded on digital payments, Latha, so far.
And what is the pace of growth? I mean, how much was it last year, for instance, or the year before?
Should be about 12% CAGR will be the pace of growth. While I'm saying that there are more than 400 million users onboarded, there will also be people who are onboarded but not utilizing fully because of various inhibitions.
That includes the 400 million?
Yes, which we will cover during the course of the panel, I'm very sure. But yes, it includes that also.
Why don't you start from there? Okay. I'm not being partial to her because she's a woman. It's because, BHIM represents NPCI, which is the, organization that has laid the rails for digitalization in India and digitized payments. So over to you, Lalitha. What inhibits people who have been onboarded but not using?
Okay. So I think a couple of things. One thing that we had done a survey a few months back when we were trying to relaunch the BHIM app. And one of the things that came to us as a feedback was that people feel that using UPI or using a digital payment as opposed to a credit card may not give them a credit score, right? When you use a debit instrument, you don't get a credit score, right? That's one. Second, they did not know if the payment fails, be it a card payment or a UPI payment or anything else. Whom do I go to? What do I do? I'm supposed to raise a dispute. I raise a dispute, and then it goes into a black box. I don't know what happens. Will I lose money? If I lose money, will I get money back? And then there are a lot of these cohorts, which are communities, right? So one bad thing happens to one person in the community, the entire community feels that, you know what, better to stay safe, right? So there are people who've got onboarded because of a lot of interest and enthusiasm. There will be some of them who are not using it, which is also a part of this 490 million. And that is our endeavor to solve this. We also have a set of people like aged parents of all of ours who want to use, who consume a lot of digital content. All of them are available on internet and WhatsApp and do a lot of voice videos and audios. But they feel that this is probably alien to them. So there are multiple cohorts, and these are the people who have onboarded but not used.
Okay, actually, you're already giving us, the obstacles to the next 300 million in what you've said. But let me come to that, Mr. Lakshminarayanan. To onboard, we have reached what, 400, 490, she said. For the next 300, what would occur to you as the first problem of onboarding?
Yeah, I think I was asking the question, why do we want to onboard the next 300?
Okay. Well, if you want to give yourself that question, then go ahead.
No, I suppose there are answers to that, but I won't. But I think, what has got us to the first 400 will not get us to the next 300. And it reminds me of, I think it requires a full rethinking of the business model. The stakeholders in the system today, the banks, the merchants, the customers, what's in it for them in the rural area to onboard into this is not very clear. Banks are also already straining with the incentives taken away from them. They just have to invest more and more infrastructure. And you add 300 million more, their cost is going to go up. with
So
no
one
real
disincentive for banks is clear.
yeah, and for the merchants, clearly, they don't see any incentives on accepting digital transactions because they're happy with the cash. Their inventory turn is much faster if they had the cash on hand rather than waiting for settlements and some of the issues that Lalitha talked about if refunds don't happen. And similarly for the customers as well. There is no incentive for them. Credit scoring is one of them. But really, there is no incentive for them to move to the digital platform. So I think that's the set of three things. I think it's the business model itself needs to be rethought. And I don't think, as I said, what got us to the first 400 will not get us to the next 300.
Well, you took away my next question, which was what will incentivize? But we will come to that. We have to look at positive steps that can incentivize. Let me look at the problems. Mr. Gaur, I think Paytm did a great job of cracking even the first 400. In terms of, unlike NPCI, which did not have to make money, you had to make money. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So something incentivized you to the first 400. If you can tell us what are the problems you face, therefore.
So the business model is very clear for at least to fintechs and other companies like Paytm. You get a customer because if you look into the customer or the merchant ecosystem, everybody is collecting money. If he takes money in cash, we don't know what is his earning. Why digitalization is important for the India is because if we have to look for 1 trillion economy or a digital economy, we have to have at least 500, 600 million active users. And once we know that what is the pattern of his earning, there is a business model of financing over it. Because today, there are a lot of people who earn good amount of money, but if they are the need of some kind of financing, they go to an unstructured way of financing, which is actually not giving him good returns in terms of the capital or the interest which he gives. Second is how we do it. So one of the important factor which we have seen, because if we talk about Paytm, we have close to 35 million merchants. And we have merchants in close to 1,200 plus cities, which is way, way deeper. And thanks to the NPCI and RBI, the digital...
Can you repeat the numbers you have?
We have close to 1,200 cities where we have merchants who are accepting payments every month on month. And we have devices which will help us because if we have to onboard merchants or customers in deep rural or tier 3, it has to be the vernacular. It can't go with English. It can't only be text-based. It has to be voice-based. So where the efforts, the AI, we had a session, beautiful session on AI previous to us. AI will help us immensely in cutting the cost of operations at least for fintech and banks, because earlier developing an app in a vernacular language was very difficult. But now with the help of AI, it is very easy to launch at a low cost. So I think we took around a decade to get, at least a decade to get 400 million customers.
Yes, yes.
But in next 6 to 7 years, our pace of getting 300 million can be achieved because of the technology which is available today.
Okay. You spoke about getting into your payment system, people who were hitherto using cash. Would you say Paytm has covered almost everyone who uses cash? Because there the problem is different. There you have cash, you have an incentive to join. What Mr. Lakshminarayanan is pointing out to that part of people who really are not even that helpful for banks because they are not doing much transaction. They are economically in a different category. Would you say you have covered everyone who is good in cash?
No. I think there is, at least on the merchant side, which I represent in Paytm, there are close to like 60 million merchants in India, which we feel with the surveys and whatever study we do, and we are close to like 35 million. So it is still a very long journey. If you go to a tier 3, tier 4 city, you will hardly see 8 to 10% of shops having QR. So that journey is still far. And once the people come on the digital ecosystem, they realize that their earning is recorded. If their earning is recorded, especially on the merchant side, they have that tomorrow if I need a capital for my business or to expand my business, I can show that. The problem in tier 3 and tier 4 cities is they may be earning good amount of money. They're actually more richer than a service class people in the Gurgaon or a metro, but they don't have a earning, what you call the, if you
have a record.
So banks cannot lend them. So they are forced to take money from some local person, and they are just not helping the banking ecosystem also.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Mr. Gaur, is that from 35 to 60 million should be an easier ride for Paytm.
Yes, not only Paytm, but overall ecosystem, because of the technology which we have got today was not available at least even 6 months back. In AI, every quarter there is a lot of change which happens in the technology and the business models.
Fair enough. Actually, I don't know, you're perhaps underestimating your reach. I met a forest, wildlife photographer yesterday, and he was saying that in some remote reaches, places like Pench and Tadoba, he could pay through Paytm because of the voice box. So I think your reach is more than you're acknowledging. Ravindra, everybody's pointing out to why banks are incentivized. Before I get to that, because I think you will have a big tale of woe to speak about, let me first get to what I thought will be predictable answers, and none of you gave those as difficulties. How much is internet reach in India? I mean, I know of several places where you go out of internet. Or how much is electricity reach? What is the smartphone reach? If the entire family has one smartphone, how much of payments will they do? Maybe one man in the house, maybe occasionally using it. And I'm deliberately saying man, not because I want to be an anti-feminist, but I'm just reflecting reality. What are the ground realities in terms of extending to the next 300 million?
True, very, very true. What you just spoke about, what got us here will not take us to another 300 million users. One of the biggest challenges, like exactly what you said, is the latency and the connectivity. That is where probably the OTP fallouts, you see a lot of those there. So this is exactly where Mr. Lakshminarayanan would be able to really help us out with, because the hinterlands are going to be the future for India again. The tier 2, tier 3, 3 or 4 cities, because if you see the average age group, it's between 28 to 30, and with a young population, and the young population are tech savvy, and they're very good with the instruments in your hand, and most of them will be teaching you what to do and what not to do with the phones, and this is what will take us there. But having said that, educating, because the biggest problem today, even we spoke about
literacy.
Yeah, educating them on what to do and what not to do is more important, and that is what we keep reading day in and day out, where people lose out on the money. This is the biggest challenge, because if somebody has experienced that, probably they will have a step back, and just wait and see whether it's going to help them out or not. So that's collective responsibility of all of us sitting here on educating people, because India as a the population in India are very adapting. I can talk to you about one of the incidents that which happened when it was many years back, when I was in Frankfurt. There was a professor from Scotland. A very interesting thing, you need to hear this. So he said he was traveling to India, and from Mumbai they were traveling to Nasik. And when you go to Nasik, there is I don't know if you visited. There's a lot of places where you have sugarcane juice, and those sugarcane juice are done by bullocks going around. There's no electricity there, and they stopped over and to have a glass of sugarcane juice. And once they did, when they did a payment, he gave cash of 500 rupees and they didn't have change. And this man takes out a QR code, and he asked them to pay, and he was surprised, and he was totally surprised. And one of the sentences that he used is, "I had juice in the most primitive contraptions that I could ever see, but made payment through one of the latest instrument that I could ever make." So that is India for you. So I think reaching to the next 300 is not a challenge, but bringing everyone together to reach there, that is mostly to educate people on how to do, what to do, and what not to do, because of the population that we are going to see that's below 30, which is going to be the majority of population. That's what is going to lead us there.
Fair point. That's extremely encouraging, and I think all of us will have such moving instances of people with not having financial and digital literacy, but able to participate in some of the advanced digital contraptions. But let us come to the point that Mr. Lakshminarayanan raised, and all of you have agreed. Incentivizing the financial actors. because you may not make much money from the next 300 million. Of course, Gaur would have us believe otherwise. He thinks that there are still enough people from whom he can make money. But assuming there isn't much money to be made, Lalitha, your take. How do we incentivize in our pre-round of the event? You were referring to how banks were forced to do things with priority sector. So do you think something like that needs to be used to ensure the first push?
Yeah, I think more than making money or incentivizing, what is the incentive for onboarding these people? I think the cost of onboarding and the cost to serve for this 300 million is going to be high, right? So that is very important to get covered. If you do not cover it beyond a point, it is going to be very unviable for anybody, whether the bank which is powering it from the back end or the app which is powering it from the front end. They will have to send some assisted means of onboarding to begin with. That's how the process is going to be, right? And it is important to indemnify this cohort for honest mistakes. If they really lose money, you may have to just, as a gesture, say, "Acha, theek hai, we will refund it to you." So which means that the cost to serve and the cost to onboarding is going to be high. So where will the money come from? So one is, if there is a way in which the top of the pyramid is able to give you more money, which let's say we've been talking about seeing whether a particular turnover and above we can have more MDRs or anything revealed. So there's one way of getting money from there. If there is a incentivization that comes from the government side for pushing this, then those can be plowed in for this 300 million to sort of accelerate the adoption and the pace of getting them onto the ecosystem. I was referring to the priority sector lending because I remember that when we were starting off on the lending space, there was a particular percentage of the book which had to be given as a priority sector lending. This will have a differential rate of interest. It will have a differential rate of booking also. And this, again, this also needs to be covered by providing additional immunity to this section. If some of these initiatives can be brought to life, then I think there will be a lot of reason to invest in this set of cohort, which is a very, very important cohort to invest in. But it's going to be very difficult to travel the miles, so we will need a lot of boosters and additional incentives to cover this up.
No, absolutely. The telecom guys also were forced to pay, are still forced, the USO, Universal Service Obligation. Their money has to be set aside, and BSNL uses it to extend the telecom lines to where it is not profitable for private companies to do. Mr. Lakshminarayanan, is that the way to go? I'm sorry, I know it's an unfair question because both telecom and banking are utility services which are being ragged literally. They're not able to make money at several points, and I'm conscious of that. But really, what is the option? Is it
what Lalitha said in terms of reappropriating some MDR at the top of the pyramid and see if that a percentage of that can be used for funding the next 300. Some incentives clearly are required. I think we started with cashbacks, but more we need to think through. I just wanted to, I'm fascinated by the business model, what we need to do and how do we need to innovate.
Please.
It takes me back to, in the UK, there is an organization called Nest that the government set up. And the real challenge in the UK was there were low-income earners and middle-income earners who are not saving any money at all for the pensions, right? And the government saw that there is going to be a huge gap, and to cover through Social Security, they saw really a time bomb ticking, and they had to solve the problem. And I think they came up with, the Nest came up with a very simple set of rules. One was, how do I remove the incentive is one, but more importantly, how do I remove the friction? So the auto-enrollment was real hero. Oh. So when I'm earning something, my employer would automatically deduct a small amount, right? So, and they have to make it so frictionless that it's more an opt-out. If I want to opt out, I need to go and ask rather than not as an opt-in. So here also we need to think about some opt-in mechanism, auto opt-in mechanism, that when I open a bank account, can I automatically open an UPI ID as well? Why do I need another process to do that, right? Or if I have another touch point in the bank for something else, even in the rural area, when I go there, can I use that touch point process to enroll the person as opposed to have another process for doing all the, the KYC and everything else. So that's one parallel that we saw. And, the Nest started in 2011. And today their target was to cover 7 million people who were not saving enough. Now they have 11 million. So I think that was a phenomenal success. That was one. The second is, while the insurers, we all know when we offer something for the pensions, about 2% goes away in the admin,
Yes.
the process as well as the fund administration. But here, Nest was given a mandate that you shall not operate more than 50 basis points. Okay. So once you have a target like that, you have to rethink your entire process, right? And then we used to say that, then you design your process to the cost you can afford rather than the other way around. So you make it leaner and leaner and leaner and digitize as much as possible. Eventually, they are running still, after this many years, they're still running at 50 basis points. That's the reason why, even though their target was 7 million, now they're able to cover 11 million employees and pensions, and it's a huge problem solved. Similarly, what we have to think about is, the mechanisms of auto-enrollment, not just for the customers, but can we also think of auto-enrollments for the merchants? They also have banking transactions. How do we, enroll them automatically? And remove all the frictions as much as possible, right? Because, think about, can you do a microclaim insurance, get immediate refund rather than having to call somebody and yes, voice AI can help. But I'm saying, why do all that? Just, how much is it going to cost? See, put some limits and remove, the first goal should be remove as many frictions as possible. Now, as a person from a technology background, we were, as in my previous hat with TCS, we did the Nest platform and made it happen at 50 basis points. But the technologist in me says that you can solve some of the problems. So we talked about connectivity network. We've actually done a pilot with the IDRBT for using LoRa network for connecting micro ATMs, right? So that's a very, it consumes less electricity, the bandwidth is low, but you can do some of the transactions, micro ATM transactions using a network. So we can find solutions, but who's going to fund those solutions, right? And similarly, you could have voice-assisted onboarding process. You could do now, I think the MSMEs are Udayam.
Portal there. They just
Portal is there. So if you're doing one KYC, why are we going and asking another KYC for something else? Can we just make one universal KYC that everybody can use? Absolutely. So I think there are technology. I'm a fan of AI, and I can talk about how all it can help.
Yeah.
Network we can talk about, but more importantly, I think if we really think about the business model, how do I remove the frictions and how do I minimize it? And combined with what are the right incentives we need to give to the banks, to the merchants, and the customers, we can be successful.
Okay. No, well, if UK has NEST, India has NPCI. If UK's Nest can do it in 50 basis,
I think we can do it even better.
5
we
basis,
can even do it better, yeah.
I would assume. So, we're at least enthused by the initial successes that NPCI has had. But really, banks are our, if we have to succeed in onboarding the next 300 million, it has to be the banks. And banks are not incentivized because there isn't much money over there. I can report a conversation which I couldn't report earlier between an RBI deputy governor and a bunch of bankers, and the deputy governor roundly chided the bankers for just giving away the UPI game to Google Pay. What were you all doing? GPay is taking away everything. And, you guys couldn't put together a platform where you could pay from bank to bank on an app designed called India Pay or something like that. How did you give it away? But the banker said, we couldn't say this in RBI because they are the regulator. But where is the money? Google has deep pockets. They're not earning a penny from Google Pay, and they are ready to spend. Can we banks do it? So that question straight away to you. Ravindra, what do you banks want? That you can extend the 300 million. We know that banks are loaded, and they've gone through the service ecosystem, hand-holding the fisc for priority sector. Jan Dhan, again, it was a cost to all the banks, Jan Dhan, and they didn't make money on it. So how should the regulator or the government enroll your support to extend?
So convenience comes at a cost, right? So somebody has to pick up the tab. Well, we're talking about enrolling, 300 million people, and also technology is the only solution for this. And just now, even before we started this, we were talking about how investment heavy, all this technology, is. And that is where your outsourcing models and partnership models are very relevant. And this is one place where I look at probably, banks and all the NBFCs or any, MFIs. Partnerships are very much required for this. Unless and until you partner with, tech-related giants or tech-related tech enablers, this would be very difficult. Yes, cost is there, somebody has to.
Would you expect a subsidy like, beyond this number, the banks should be reimbursed? I think the government even thought of reimbursing some of the MDR payments, provided you keep UPI free.
Correct.
So would a reimbursement kind of thing work for the banks?
That would be brilliant. That would be brilliant. That would be a great thing to do it. That's exactly what we discussed right away about
If the cost,
incentivizing.
as you say, for onboarding is 25 rupees, then the government bears 20 rupees or 15 rupees.
Correct. That would be a great way of helping out the banks, because as in the point of reputation, because technology is highly disruptive, because you invest a lot, this is the biggest challenge. Invest a lot and suddenly it becomes obsolete.
PhonePe takes away the customer.
Yeah, it does happen. So that is where we all need to come out with the solution. Probably, as you rightly said, if the government incentivizes, that will be one step forward for the banks to come forward and see what we can do much better with this.
Even if the government were to pay that initial amount, they're not going to pay it to Paytm, is my assumption. They're more likely to do it to banks, because they see that as the lowest common denominator, serving your driver and your maid to open accounts. Savings bank account holders would be the one they would go to. What would be Paytm's view in terms of, what will incentivize you to go through the next 300?
So, government have certain subsidies and incentives which can increase, or there is a specific zone which government calls as PIDF, which is not so highly digital zone. PIDF, where for merchant onboarding and for soundbox placement on those zones, RBI gives a decent kind of incentives for a device. Okay, so and that incentive.
It's already there, incentives are there.
It is already there. That incentives directly comes to Paytm. But it is very important that we have to understand that why these people are still not on the system. Everybody is trying, Paytm is trying, banks are also trying. But how we solve the trust problem, which Lalitha was mentioning, that they are not, it is not that they are not onboarded because people have not trying to onboard. It is because they don't trust the ecosystem. कि यार मेरा पैसा ना चला जाए कहीं. So if we have to onboard these, we have to solve first. One is the business model is obviously we have to solve, but how we solve the trust deficit with these people have because of their ecosystem awareness or the digital ecosystem awareness, because they feel, yeah, if something happens on this app, I have no face to complain. And if we solve that problem and we build a confidence that, okay, your problems can be solved sitting at your home, then the onboarding will become faster, for especially in tier 3, 4. Because today, when Jan Dhan account were opened, it was a face or a bank name or a branch which they could see. But especially on a UPI kind of a system, they feel if something happens to my balance in my account, I have nobody to complain. And there people churn out of the system, or they don't come at the system.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I would count as among the top financially literate and digitally literate person. If I have a problem with the bank, I call the corporate communications department of the bank, people with whom I always deal with. I don't call the call center. I mean, if a person like me behaves so badly, I mean, or at least is, call center will take time. I have to search for the call center number. Should I look at the credit card? Is it written over there? All these things. I'm still not looking at the call center number. It will be way more difficult for someone who is not in English or for someone who is not digitally savvy. Now, Lalitha, how do you solve this problem? Hand-holding. I mean, even Digi Yatra, we have hand-holding. We all do it at home, but when we go over there in the airport, there are people who are helping us. And that makes you feel better, that someone is there to help you. So how do you get this human element in?
No, so I think there are three different cohorts of people whom we need to address. One is people who consume digital content but are not on digital, which is, even like I said, our parents and some people who are also in the younger generation who prefer to use cash. Some of the products that we've made very recently, we launched today a product called UPI Circle, which allows you to delegate money to somebody. They pay on your account with a particular limit. Okay. So you basically warm them up to payments, but don't give their bank account linked, so they don't lose money, and you keep either authorizing the payment or you give them the authority.
How do you do that? You personally go to each person?
No. So this is for people like, people like us and people like our parents, right? The second cohort and the third cohort. In the last 300 mile that we're talking about, the last mile, right? I think we'll have to look at the women population differently and the men population differently. Oh. So these are three cohorts that I feel which are to be addressed. The first one is easy because it's a product solve. The second and the third, I think, is a product plus intent plus technology solve. When we did a survey, again, a lot of women who wanted to use UPI could not use UPI because they had one phone in the family and the Aadhaar number was linked to that one phone, right? So they can't onboard. You do a SIM and a device binding. So that's a product plus a technology solve. Second, my mom used to do this. She used to keep a lot of money in those jars in home, right? So I don't want to come on UPI because I want my savings to be my savings. I don't want my spouse to know about it. So it's an intent solve. So how do we create people-first products for this women population who helps them to come on to this? Because they have an intent, but their intent is a little bit different from that. So this cohort will have to be addressed through product solve and a technology solve which helps them get over that intent. The third one, of course, is the men in the cohort, where I think it's important. The Business Correspondent Network today is doing a great job in actually going and meeting them and solving for a lot of problems, and we have a lot of product unlocks there. So I think you should use assistants to begin with because there is no other option. Sometimes it's okay to use assistants because if you make their onboarding frictionless, they may fall prey to unnecessary frauds and their start is going to be patchy. So it's okay to use assistants. That's why the cost of onboarding is going to be high. But with assistance and with a little bit of, let's say, for example, most of them are covered by banks, right? If the bank branches tell them that, every time you open an account, aapko main ye app set up karke de dunga. That could be the assistance. It need not necessarily be a BC. It can be any touch point of them with somebody who is probably a little more financially literate than them. So that can be a way to solve. So these are the three cohorts, if I can summarize as important.
That's excellent. That was going to be my last round of questions, and you have already answered it. I want from each one of you at least one, or if you wish more, advice to the government or to the regulator or to the ecosystem itself to get the next 300. One or two pieces of advice.
I think we had a lot of ideas, including how you could deploy a network in the rural area, like a LoRaWAN and other technologies. There are newer technologies coming which will not require that much of bandwidth and make it a lot more secure, like the named data networks, which are very secure. So you can solve a technology set of problems. We can take some of the incentives and onboarding assisted through the correspondence and so on. My suggestion would be to take a microcosm of 3 districts and do a pilot there and really measure all the cohorts, what incentivizes and how do. And more than that, once they're onboarded, can we solve the credit score problem? Use their payment history to give them loans, for example. So that it goes beyond just the incentive in the form of some kind of a cashback or anything else. Other incentives which will tell them, hey, it was good for me to come on the digital bandwagon because I'm getting a lot more benefits out of this. Right? So I think we can experiment in a certain way, combine with technology, combine selecting the cohorts, combining certain incentives and everything, and do that as a.
I think a microcosm idea would be great because then you can, from the pilot, extrapolate to the whole. Mr. Gaur?
So one of the programs which government has done very well in India in the last 30, 40 years is the vaccination program. And we can learn from that. We have seen that vaccination worked very well in India when we had ambassadors in every village who were driving that. So we can have digital ambassador program kind of a thing, where a person is maybe appointed with some money or just recognition, where his role is to make people digitally savvy, and government is endorsing that those digital ambassadors, like we have concepts of like Health Didi and other, especially in vaccination. So now the time has come that we should have digital ambassadors program from the government of India or NPCI or certain fintechs, and drive the onboarding and digital adoption in the rural India.
Bank Didi would be a good idea. I agree with you. But Mr. Gaur, I thought you will speak about your agentic AI. The voice box is now talking back, I believe.
Yeah. So I think when Latha was mentioning, I understand that today we are talking assisted as a human touch. But we at Paytm are very sure that assisted does not require human touch. You have call centers which are now AI driven. Earlier you were talking to a person when you're dialing in, now there's an AI bot or a voice bot which responds in a better way than a human will. So I don't feel that the time in next 6 to 8 months, the assisted human touch will go away. Assisted will be purely AI. We have seen this happening in, at least in the call center industry at this point of time.
Absolutely. Actually, you can combine what Lalitha is saying, have a Bank Didi show, how the agentic works, and then perhaps the rest of the village or the cohort or the ecosystem is able to pick up. Hopefully something like that. All three of you are looking at a pilot that can be extrapolated. Ravindra, what's the advice or suggestion?
So for me, probably it'll be trust, belief, and confidence. So you need to give confidence to the people. For instance, today, if somebody loses money while doing a transaction, like how we said, they lose out. There is probably my probably request to the government would be like how we were talking about how 2FA is there in India, and outside India, probably if somebody loses out on a credit card, they are insured, and then the money comes back. So if you give this confidence to the people at large, that even by mistakes, things happen. If they lose money, they are going to be, taken care of if it's, happened. Genuine error, yeah, exactly. So these kind of messages, if it goes out, I think this will be a great way of, probably if you want my father or my mother to come on, because it's very difficult, because somebody calls them and I'm calling from the bank, they reach out to their, a debit card or credit card to tell what the number is, because that's their belief. So this is where we need to be very clear how, as regulators, as government, as bankers, we give confidence to the people out there, because as I already told you, the 300 million coming in would basically be from the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities. And these are the cities, these are aspirational cities. Because I also know that in the Western Ghats, there are small villages, and they do a lot of QR-based transactions.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do a lot of transactions. So the country has moved on. But again, they don't know where to go. So if this problem is solved, I think we can reach this target beyond prior to what he was talking about, 5, 6 years, I think by around 3.5 years.
I too feel confident that, from 2017 when UPI first came, I think it was even earlier, 2016 when it came. Yeah, we didn't use it much, but even when demonetization happened, many of our colleagues went on into UPI but came back once cash came back, but went back to digitization for good after COVID. So, some such pressure does make us take irreversible steps towards digitization. I had good intentions, but there are only 6 minutes, 5.5 minutes left. Questions are open for the floor. Please. You could even tell us whom you want the answer addressed to.
I just want to add on to what Mr. Ravindra said. And in the masterclass by NPCI, I've already made the statement.
Closer.
Yeah. So I've actually written a paper reimagining UPI next. And that paper I've submitted to Reserve
Your
Bank.
name, sir?
My name is Anil Katia. I'm an ex-banker. So what you just said, and this is a point I'm making for quite some time now, what you need is build the chargeback process into technical architecture. You have to make it so easy to have a grip over my money that it becomes confidence and trust that is lacking.
Fair point, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for that. Suggestions and questions welcome. Just keep them as brief as he made it. Looks like everyone is very confident the next 300
There's a
million will
lady
come.
who's,
Please.
yeah.
Please, ma'am. You have to stand up, otherwise the mic won't come to you. Yeah.
Thank you, esteemed member of the panel and Ms. Latha for moderating this session very well. Sorry, my voice is a bit bad.
No, go ahead.
So I'll tell you my personal experience and my friend's experience to the point what Mr. Ravindra said and this gentleman also said. We transferred money to a wrong number or a bank account number and we could not get it back. It's been almost a month. The challenge is even when you contact the payment aggregators like BHIM or GPay, they say the data is encrypted, so we do not know where your money has gone. So we are left in a way that we do not even know where the money has gone. Now you go to the bank, that from my bank account, the money's got transferred somewhere else. Bank will say you go to the mode of payment. If it was net banking, we could have helped you. Here we cannot help you. So the challenge is we got onboarded, enrolled on this very digitally. But the query resolution, or what I would say is that the mechanism to ensure quicker and fair recovery, that is not digitized. And as Ms. Latha also said and Ms. Lalitha said, we do not know whom do we call also.
Fair point. Ma'am,
So is there any
human element?
Yeah. So is there any implementation in the platforms or any plans to have this implemented where we get that confidence that even if we make a mistake, like for example, can I have a system I can revoke my payment within 2 minutes if I realize I've transferred it to a wrong number?
Fair point. No, that's taken on board. Yeah, please go ahead. You can take my mic if you're not, okay.
Hello, hi. This is Mitesh here from Miss Call Pay, actually. So while we embrace 350 million users already on UPI, there are significant 850 million users or 85 crores users who are banked but not on UPI. And the problem is actually that there are systems which has been invented like 123 Pay, and which is the ecosystem I belong to. But the adoption, the way it is treated is similar to what a UPI has been treated. So the costs, economics are completely different. And actually the way it has to get onboarded also is different. So what is a regulator or a bank's point of view where we can actually, be part of this, enablement to enable the next not only 300 million, but 850 million which are actually using AEPS and a cash-based economy driving to that.
I believe the Reserve Bank of India Deputy Governor is one of the speakers, Ravi Shankar, in one of the panels. I think you should put this question to him. The regulators will have a plan, or should have at least. I don't know if anybody else wants to take this question here. No, it's the regulators' forte. The question will be put to them. But I think the lady's problem also is, it's
so I think to her problem, I have 2 points. One is, see, chargeback as a process is there for a merchant transaction today. It's never there for a person-to-person transaction. While, see, it's very important because the bank who has your account knows and has a trust score attached to you. Not literally a score, but, they know that you're a trustworthy individual. You will not file a complaint unnecessarily. Okay, so this is so we can't develop a universal mechanism for solving it because there will be people who will misuse it. I will say I sent her money by mistake and I genuinely owe her money, and then I say please refund it back to me. So it's very important. So many banks are doing this. They have certain ways of solving this problem, which is if the money is going and coming within the bank. If it's across the bank, it's a very tricky problem to solve, but it can't solve by the idea that you gave, saying that delay it in 2 minutes. You want things to happen instantly. Delaying it by 2 minutes is going to cause a different set of problems altogether.
Massive misuse.
Right? So, yeah.
ability to revoke.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. When you revoke, what are you doing? You gave me money, you're revoking it, right? I'll give you a simple example. Because of the fact that there are reward points attached to a debit card transaction, people have done a debit card transaction, revoked, done, revoked, and earned thousands of points just by using this mechanism. So some of these things, while they will solve this problem on hand, it will create numerous set of other problems. That's why the P2P world will have to be dealt with a little more caution. our way of dealing with it, and Mr. Gaur and Mr. Ravindra can correct me if I'm missing something, is by putting limits. You can't do more than X transactions in a day. You can't transfer more than X value in a day. But the refund of a P2P transaction is always based on trust. If I've sent money to him, I should be able to call him and say, yaar, galti ho gaya, reverse karo. That's the process today, and that's what it is. Unfortunately, the bank or the app cannot do anything because you have, as a person, willingly transferred that money.
And especially in a P2P transaction, most of us transfer money to a known contact or at least a number which is saved in the phone. So that is where such kinds of limit of withdrawal cannot be put because it will be so massively misused that people will transfer money, avail the service and say refund. So that is where there are challenges which are there in P2P especially.
Okay. No, actually, the lady's problem is genuine. Yeah. Her suggestion was not very helpful. But I think that trust problem is
trust problem and where do I go and complain is very genuine. I'm sure we will solve for that.
It has to be solved for, just as the gentleman's, how do you onboard the next 85 crore or 850 million? Unfortunately, the time is screaming up, so I cannot entertain more questions. The guests are going to be around, and you may personally ask them your questions.
Ma'am, we will take one last question from the gentleman there. Yeah, we'll take
Okay, go ahead.
Ma'am, just one last question. So just taking the cue from what everybody said, my name is Sandeep. So there was an interesting seminar just before there where the DOT gentleman said that they have created a repository of phone numbers because everything is linked to a phone number. And they have a risk categorization, a high, medium, or low risk. So when you're transferring the money, it just pops up on your screen that you are transferring money to a high risk. So probably you get warned beforehand. So maybe if the banks start reporting that these are fraudulent numbers, then probably this database could become a repository, like a credit score.
Telecom companies are also solving that problem to some extent by
Thank you
alerting
so
of
much.
spam.